Hello, good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you're located. I'm Jason Douglas with Metadata. The title says Senior Solutions Architect and Marketing Strategy Director right here. It's a lot, but I do a lot here at Metadata. And one thing we're going to talk about today is how we're going to be able to turn intent into leads with Metadata Spotlight. I'm really excited to talk about this. It's a product that's been around for several months, about a year now, but the portion we're going to talk about and hone in on is something that's brand new that I think unlocks significant opportunity for all users from the marketing side and the sales side. So this is a solution I think that can be used across teams for the same goal as to drive revenue. That's what we're tasked to do here. Again, been with the group for 3 years, gosh, over 3 years now. I'm at a data income with over a decade of experience, but enough about me. You're not here to look at my mug. We're going to take a look at Spotlight, but just a couple slides. There will be no death by deck here, but just a couple things for us to consider and set the stage for what we're going to review today. Pop that in slideshow. Perfect. So again, this is me. You probably saw this ad on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook. So if you registered that way, very much appreciate you spending some time with us. Would love to know where everyone is from. I'm in Minnesota, where it's cold with no snow, which is very weird for almost mid-January to have no snow on the ground. But that's where I'm at. Where's everyone else from? Would love to hear in the chat. If you could just put that in the chat, I'll call you out and give me a shout out in that respect. Tel Aviv, hello, very different from Minnesota. India, the opposite side. Very cool to be reaching across the globe here. A couple in India. New York City, welcome. Toronto, hello, Toronto. A place I've never been, but I hear it's beautiful. Would love to get up there sometime soon. So look at that. I mean, this is the power of what we're able to do here, is that we're joining people from multiple countries in one session just to talk about Spotlight. Tells me that this is pretty important for people to understand how we're going to turn this data that we now have at our fingertips and action it as well. So I think that's Philly. Hello, Philly. All right. Great spread. Thanks for engaging there. I do have a question for everyone here, since we're talking about intent and wanting to know more about who our visitors are, of course. I've got a poll that's opened up here. Have you wondered who is visiting my website? We know about sessions and page views, bounce rates, conversion rates, all that stuff. But have you ever actually wondered who's visiting? Let's check out the poll here, see who's responding. I got a couple votes in there. Everyone so far, 100% for yes, you have wondered that. More votes coming in. Yes, you've wondered that. And that's not a yeah. I expected this. It's a bit of a softball question. I'll acknowledge that. But as marketers, we're curious, and even salespeople, we're curious. We have this amazing digital storefront open 24/7, and all we get is that something happened, but no information about who it happened with and for. It's frustrating, but we can do some of that. We can understand the logos that are coming through. We get that information. There's plenty of sources that provide, hey, Apple or Automation Anywhere, Price FX, Zapier, and so on are visiting our site. Like, this is really good information. And if you're amongst a group, many groups that are doing ABM that have your target account list, whatever size it is, you are curious of the list I have, are we getting those companies to our website? Well, we can answer that question. That's great. But because we're marketers and we're very curious, we're starting to ask different questions. Not just, hey, did Apple come to our site? Apple's massive. Zoom's massive. Some of these groups, several hundred people, thousands of people. Not everybody at an organization for a respective company's purposes is of equal importance. They're important people, but if I'm looking to engage with a particular team, I just want that team and not anyone else. So often the question becomes, who at these companies is visiting my website? We won't put a poll up for that, but love in the chat if you've wondered that as well. So we get a little more information about, hey, did I get the right person, or who am I getting to this as well? Let's see what we're getting in the chat here. Have you wondered who at your target companies is engaging with your website, with your content, and so on? 100%. Yes. Thank you, Carol. Yes, like that's the answer. Like, there aren't often times where the answer could be either or, yes or no. This is yes. We want to know who. Without it, again, Apple visited my site. You think that's great. Samsung visited my site. That's, wow, what a logo. Good luck in pinpointing that person. Needle in a haystack. That's a game you're going to be playing with that. Now, we're going to talk about intent, because we assume that if a company visits our website, that there has to be some level of intent. And intent can mean many different things. I'd love to know in the chat, in a second, how you define intent. But often, I think the intent that we're hoping is very much, I want that, I needs that in my life, or people are begging us to buy. That's what we hope, but that's not often reality. So I'd love to know from this group, how should you, or how should we define intent? More like, I'm curious if you can help me. Like, that's realistic. That's real. That's what we get oftentimes in sales calls is, hey, I've heard about you. I think you do these things. I'm curious if that actually works. Scott, that's a great call out. But like, is that how we should define intent? If someone is curious, what level of curiosity? What defines that? Is it a couple visits? Is it a topic of interest, search intent? Yeah, like Google Ads, keywords. Like, that is a often bottom funnel channel. If someone searches for your exact service, well, there's clearly intent behind that person. And hopefully they click on our ad and convert to get a demo. That's what we want. Demo page, pricing page, different levels of intent, 100%. But how do we judge that right now? Like, you right now in Google Analytics or other analytic solutions, you know that people are visiting those pages, the demo page, pricing pages. You know if they are converting from those pages. But we don't know for those that are not converting, who's visiting. It's a bit of a black box. An intent is often a black box. There's plenty of sources of intent out there. I'm not going to bash anybody, but how relevant is it if you find out that someone is in market, put it in quotes, for your general product or service? Let's use an example of HR software. There's a lot of HR software out there that are not always competitive, complementary. So if someone's in market for HR software, is that your software or is that a different software? I don't know, because it's a third-party signal. It's not your data. This is where metadata's spotlight comes into play. So we're going to pivot. We're actually going to go on the platform. Thank you for your patience with going through just a few slides. I hope that wasn't too arduous, but it's time to show what intent means now in 2025. So, curious for those that are attending across the globe, how many of you have heard of or seen Spotlight before? Is this view new? And y'all haven't been shy yet. No need to be shy now. Carol, you've seen this. Thank you, Carol. So this is the area. First time for Scott. Excellent. And I should note, as I've been asking you questions, please ask questions in the Q&A section. Would love to address everything, especially for people like Scott and for Scott too. If this is the first time, this might be very interesting. So what we're looking at here, again, is Spotlight. And We're looking at the logos that have engaged with us directly from a few different sources. It could be either website visitors and sessions and page views. It could be Salesforce activity, calls, emails, and such, opportunities. It could be ad channel activity. But in short, it's based on your data, not a third party. And there's a lot of things we can do within this. It's not just the identification of logos, which is great. All of these, Elkhorn, Achievers, AutoTix, and so on. But there's a lot of information we're going to have access to. Remember, we're combining website data, we're combining Salesforce data, and ad channel data, all in one spot. I'm going to go to a specific segment, and I'll explain what a segment is. We were looking at every single account over the last 90 days. We have at Metadata almost 24,000 accounts that have engaged with us at some level. That's a lot. I'd love if all of those were of equal importance. Unfortunately, they're not. So it's important for us to kind of sift through the noise and understand who matters. And this goes to a part that we'll talk about at the end in what we do with this data, not just having access to it. We're building out rule sets so we can get a specific segment of companies that matter. I want any company that has viewed one of our high intent pages. To Scott's point earlier, demo page, pricing page. Those two pages matter a lot more than just someone visiting the homepage. So if we know that there's a specific logo visiting these pages, that's a signal of intent. And now we'll know the company who is visiting us. 32,000 accounts all time have visited our high intent pages. Now that's a lot, so we need to build this down a little bit more. It could be based on perhaps channel engagement. Here's a good one. Opportunity status. What about those that don't have opportunities? The ones that are showing intent on your website that don't have an open op? Shame. These are groups that we probably need to engage with a little bit more. Or you would if you had Spotlight installed. So this gives us insight a little bit more. No ops. How about this even more? Account owner. Hey, of course, we want to track the ones that have an owner in Salesforce. So we can even make a segment per sales rep. That's fantastic. But what about those accounts that don't have a sales rep? I'm scared to see this number. But transparently, we have a lot of accounts that have viewed intent pages that we care about, that don't have opportunities, that don't have account owners. We have some work to do. We have opportunity, but we don't know this without Spotlight. So now that we have a segment of accounts, I'm going to discard this because it's already created. We have a specific segment. Those that have viewed high intent pages, this one that we built out based on a specific industry, specific employee count, no opportunities, engagement score is high. We have our own engagement score that you get to modify based on what matters to you. So person level intent, your first party data, configuring into the scoring we have here that have viewed intent page. So we have 4 accounts in the last 90 days. Some good logos here, but we need to do something with them. The piece that we're now unlocking is when we go into Zapier, for example, like high engagement, we've got 3 unique visitors. No longer is it just someone viewed a page. We know Kelly viewed the careers page. So hopefully Kelly's not on here. Sorry if I just outed you. If you're looking for a career, we'd love to talk perhaps. But Miranda has viewed a couple intent pages, our ABM blogs. So like this matters. Now we know this doesn't have an account owner. So one of our sales reps should be salivating at getting Zapier as their account and using this data to reach out to Miranda, knowing what she's already done on our site. So now there's a different conversation that our sales reps can have with outreach. This is game changer. I know I'm talking at people right now, and I would hope that people are thinking this as well. But let me open this to the group. Knowing this information is available and possible, what would you do with this? How would this change the game, either from a marketing perspective or sales perspective? I'll wait in the chat for a couple seconds for responses because I'm curious what this means to you right now. I'll take the silence in the chat here, as there's going to be some very long responses here, which Scott, great question. What is the ID connected, your third-party cookie with our first-party data? So it's a mix of having our pixel or script on your website, so we're able to understand the visits that are taking place, plus our metadata audiences database, combining those two pieces and sources of data to identify who's coming to your site and to what pages as well. So you might be familiar with something called MetaMatch. We just renamed it to Metadata Audiences. It's that database that we have available too. Match rate, there's the question I was asking for, because a few demos I've done of this, that's the number one question, is like people get excited. Match rate, I've seen between 25 to 40%. Danny, you are able to identify the exact person ID. Yes, as we've done with Kelly, there's Miranda, and match it to a LinkedIn, to a Gmail, to a job title, and anything else we can provide. Karina, great question. Are you using your own data for this or partnering with others? So our database, the metadata audiences, formerly known as MetaMatch, is comprised of about 10, 12 different data sources that we then normalize together to ensure accuracy, relevancy. So it's third-party data that we build into one database of ours. All fantastic questions. But we are skipping on the question that was out there. Like, this information is available. Metadata Spotlight does this for you. What do you do with it? How does this change what you're doing today from a sales or marketing perspective? And thank you for the question, Scott, Danny, Karina. Excellent ones. Ways we've seen groups use this is, again, through sales outreach. If we have a target account, or at least a named account, and we're getting this data in, it's no longer reaching out to those that we may have just guessed that we should reach out to, but now we have an existing contact right here. We know Miranda, we know who she is at Zapier. We know Kelly, we know who she is at Zapier. Those are two people that we have, which is very incredible. Again, when we can match it, you'll see someone. So we only do it when we have a high level of confidence. All right, a couple other questions. Let me address those. Carol, what all interactions can we track? So from a website perspective, we are tracking the pages that they visit. So for example, Miranda visited these two intent pages, the ones that we have defined. We do that within the setup. We define not just, hey, any page. Although if Miranda did visit a non-high intent page, we'd call that out. It just so happens that these pages that people at Zapier are visiting are high intent. Like for example, our homepage, not high intent. Pricing, Scott's point earlier, high intent. So we're tracking from that view the visits. Now, there's other interactions we can track from an ad channel perspective. Clicks and impressions and conversions. We'll have campaign data associated with that. So for example, there were 4 impressions served to Zapier people from this particular campaign. If there's a click, it'd be an engagement. If there's a conversion, we'd see who. From a Salesforce perspective, you'll see, hey, if emails are sent to specific people. Miranda, Sadie, another one to Sadie, Miranda, Sadie again. Looks like this is back when we had our demand conference, making sure people attended. So that all combined into one. And if we look at the top here, Salesforce campaign data, sales data from Salesforce, conversions from the ad channels, website visits, LinkedIn ad impressions as well. We'll track if there's an impression and click from other channels as well. That's a filter we can build out for a segment. All right, Scott, do you have an integration with email linking? For example, send an email to people who you met at an event, and when they click on the link, it connects to the track third-party cookie to associate history with current activity. So if you have UTMs connected to that email link, absolutely. So that is a filter we can use within here. Let me just go back to all accounts, start fresh. But yeah, any UTMs that we have available, 100%. You should be seeing all the different options from a website view and then even CRM view. Danny, are you able to pull user ID from your database only? Yes, it's our database. All excellent questions. I love it when there's a ratio of more questions per minutes on the webinar. That's a good one. A couple things to note about that PII unlocking. We can enable it from the back end, but it will require someone from your end to officially enable it. It is the data that we are unlocking, but you have to authorize that to take place, just so you know from a process perspective. It is an add-on for those who have Spotlight. For those that are looking to be interested in this, it can be bundled together. Levers for what Spotlight would be as an investment is all based on your monthly visitors. We have our account set up to 100,000 or up to 100,000, but depending on where you're at will depend on the pricing that we present, just for your knowledge if interested. Okay, so Scott, it's a feature we built years ago for marketing automation at a previous company. The link would automatically, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I like it, without utilizing UTMs. Okay, if there's some kind of URL, like if the URL contains something, we possibly can track that way. I'd have to look into that a little bit further. Happy to take that offline if it's of interest. But I like to think there's always a way to do something. It just might take a little extra work. UTMs is an easy way, but if it's something that's a legacy, we can explore that option too. This is excellent. Custom query string parameter, perhaps. Okay. Is there anything that's consistent about? Oh, maybe Scott. Here, let me put my email address, and this is for everybody as well. That's how you reach out to me. Would love to talk about Spotlight even further if we get more into the weeds from a technical perspective. I welcome that. Scott, please reach out. Would love to troubleshoot this or see like if your use case makes even more sense. And anyone else's as well. A couple other things to cover about the intent pieces. We've got the logos. In many cases, we have the who at the logos. There's other pieces from a Spotlight perspective that people ask about scoring a lot, trends and such. What do these flames mean? It's a little bit of a gamified approach on scoring. Think of it as a 1 to 100 score. Engagement itself is determined solely by you, though. There are different KPIs that we have, but then you choose how much each interaction means. An impression probably means less than a click, which means less than a lead. How much does click-through rate mean? If there's a visit to your site or to a high intent page, how do you weigh that? Do emails and calls matter? Whatever scoring you see in that engagement column is up to you. So it's not just a third party, it's literally your decision on that. All right. How do we integrate with ABM platforms, 6sense, Demandbase, etc.? We integrate with a really good platform called Metadata directly. There's ways we can use 6sense and Demandbase signals within metadata audiences, but we don't have a direct integration with those solutions necessarily. This is a bit of a change. I know Sixth Sense has their own signals. Demand Base has their own signals. It's that third party or black box. It's different than what we do, where it's your data, own data from Salesforce, your website, your ad channel activity. So it's a different approach and a more custom approach than I think what others are doing. Additionally, if we're talking about acting on this data, there's a couple things that we can send over to your sales team. If you use Slack internally, we can set up Slack alerts that tag your salespeople on when one of their accounts, named accounts, engages. There could be daily email alerts around what's going on with their accounts as well. Having them named is key, though. So know that that's communication we can have. Additionally, when you connect Salesforce, if you give us right permissions, we can actually send some data back to the account object. The fields that you see on the left are the ones that we can send over. It would require, or at least I'd recommend from a technical perspective, to create new fields to receive this information that would be on the account object. But the clients that use this, again, it helps their sales team understand, hey, which accounts are truly trending up, are acting upon all the activities that you're doing from a marketing perspective, which ones have clicked and visited in the last 7 days. Like recency matters. We're able to do that here. You don't need to bring every data point that we offer over. Choose the ones that make the most sense for your group, but just know that that is possible here. Last piece we'll touch here before we pop into more questions. And again, thank you so much for all the questions you've done so far. Thanks for not being a shy group. Those segments, I'll go back and look at all the different segments that we have, or even then choose to create. Think of the data we have here that has the potential to be a known retargeting audience. Again, we know the accounts, we sometimes know the people. When we go into the metadata audiences section, take a look at these two audiences here, Spotlight retargeting contacts and Spotlight retargeting accounts. Any segment that we've built out, we can now use as an audience that we activate within metadata or even outside if you choose, if you don't have the full platform with us. But if I want to target those high intent page views with no opportunities, well, bad example, live TV, but you're going to see the number of accounts that fit under that segment. Maybe we don't want to use that one. Let's take a look at high and very high engagement, get a higher number than 3. Once we have that, all right, 239 accounts. Like that's a respectable amount of accounts that are telling us we're very interested and we should probably support that interest with some advertising to help push them to that next step. But again, not everybody matters of equal importance. So now we get to layer on the persona, whether it is the VP plus. We want people that are in whatever region we care about. All of those pieces now we can add. So then at these 239 accounts that have engaged with us and have high, very high engagement over the last 90 days, we can hit them right now across multiple channels. If we're doing the account level piece, we'd be able to do it on LinkedIn because we're helping pull from the LinkedIn database. But now we get to be very specific. If we know the intent behind someone's visits and someone's activity, that's going to change the creative we present. It's going to change how we're bidding on these groups. If I'm in charge of that campaign, I'm willing to pay a lot more to get that proper engagement and conversion from a high intent source, especially if that intent is mine. I own it. It's my website. It's my Salesforce. It's my ad channels. It's my high intent pages I've defined. It's that engagement score I've defined. You're in control now of intent. That hasn't always been the case. But in 2025, you are. All right, only halfway through. We're not going to go on just for the full hour just because we booked it. But I'd love to spend a few minutes for anyone that has additional questions. I'm going to pop out of the platform here so we can have a little more of an engaging conversation as best as possible. But what questions does the group have? And how many of you are going to be emailing me to take a demo of this? I know you all have my email. Oh, Ray, how do you make sure you are, I'm guessing you meant GDPR compliant? Well, that's part why you opt into allowing that information within the account. But we have a security kit here at Metadata that will validate our GDPR, CCPA, compliance, ISO 27001, a lot of different certifications that we have. So we're very confident that there's full compliance here. Excellent question. It's one we get, I'd say second most, other than one that was asked earlier. What's the match rate is a big one. So we're hitting all the right questions here, everybody. What else is on your mind? Do you all see this as something that you either need to utilize more if you're an existing customer, or need to reach out to us and perhaps engage with us on that level? This is the only part of a webinar that I wish that we did have, the voice engagement here, where someone could just say, yes, I'd love to talk more. Let's take this offline. Let's DM here. But the chat has been excellent here. I'll stay in for a couple extra minutes, but I appreciate everyone's time over the lunch hour, or I guess if it's 10 o'clock, Pacific time, India. I know this is very late in the evening. So I appreciate everyone connecting from Tel Aviv, from Toronto, from Philly to India to New York, here in Minnesota. This was amazing. I appreciate everyone's time. I'll hang out for a few extra minutes if you want to reach out directly. Otherwise, I hope I see a few of you in my inbox. My email is just above there, jason.douglas@metadata.io. And I'd love to continue the conversation.